Everyone talks about how to set up a simple interview. In any interview setup, there are variables to consider, including lighting, sound, camera position, and so many more. But the reality is, you will be put in a situation where you really can't control all these factors. In today's video, I'm going to be going over an unconventional two-person interview setup in the bleachers of an ice rink. To give some context to the situation, we were told that we would be shooting a two-person interview at the Ford Performance Center in Toronto. We weren't sent any pictures of the location or where we would even be shooting because this interview was in the training center of the Maple Leafs. And we're going to be interviewing one of the players of the team, and with press and the general management of the team, it wasn't really disclosed on what and where we could shoot due to just scheduling and everything else that was going on at the time. We arrived at the location and we were given the option to either shoot in an arena or possibly a room if we could find one. We definitely like challenges when shooting in particularly tricky spaces, and I suggested that we shoot in the arena. And then that led to our first problem because the only place we could shoot in was the bleachers. And we couldn't even set up our main tripods because the legs were too big and there simply wasn't enough room. To solve this, we used two sets of nesting apple boxes as well as a sandbag. This is a move I personally use a lot when trying to get low angle shots because simply it works. The nesting apple boxes are just so versatile when dialing in the camera position in terms of height because you can stack them in different orientations in terms of all the apple boxes that we have. The sandbag, funny enough, kind of acts like a beanbag, and then you just plop the camera on top of the sandbag, then add an additional sandbag if you need to tilt the camera in any orientation that you want to. We had the Sony FX9 on a 35mm lens as our wide for the subject, and then a Sony FX6 with an 85mm lens as a tight B-cam angle. The client as well requested a face-on shot of the subject, and this was done with a Sony a7S III with a G-Master lens. And the way we did this is we used a Manfrotto tripod with adjustable legs. So we had the legs kind of just finagled in there beside the person who was interviewing. The main concern we had of the eyeline of the subject, but this was more of a stylized shot and the client wasn't really concerned about that. So it ended up working out. For the interviewer, we used a Sony FX III with a 105mm lens. This is a pretty standard interview, and this is a lens that you typically wouldn't use because for your A-cam shot on a subject, you want something that is in the medium to wide range. And because we had to shoot through so many things in terms of all the cameras and stuff that was in the way, we had to back this camera up and shoot on super long lens, and that's why we had to use the 105 in this case. And the next challenges were lighting both subjects. As there were practices going on, as well as not being able to control the house lights, the only thing that we could do was expose for the room and then bring the light in for the subject. There wasn't any room to put up additional stands because we had our audio equipment set up. The only thing that we could think of is using the railing that was already there, and then we just taped a nanlite pavo tube to it, and we saw that this light was a little bit too harsh, even at a really low setting. So what we had to do is we had to put a shear over it, and this is a $20 shear that you can get on Amazon. I believe it's half stop, and then we just doubled it up to give us a full stop of diffusion. This is the person who we're interviewing, Wayne Simmonds from the Toronto Maple Leafs, and then this is the railing that we are talking about. The first thing I'm going to talk about is general composition. So again, I talk about this all the time. We want to frame up our subject so he's basically, our eyes are drawn to that. And then there's so many things in the frame that just intersect into his body and his head. I know I say this a lot, but again, leading lines are your best friends in this case. So we have something at the bottom, we have something at the top, shooting into the corner of the room, obviously, to give us the most depth. And then even the rink adds those nice lines just going right to his body, to what we're focusing on. And yeah, that's about it. So for the lighting, off frame here, I'm just gonna draw it right here. We had that nanlite pavo tube, and it was just gaff tape there, pretty simple. And then we had the half stop shears doubled up to give us a full stop of diffusion. And that was our main light source. And then you can't really tell on his body, you can kind of tell that separation kind of falling off right here. And then his left side here is going to the shadows, but you can really see it on his face here. And again, because we couldn't really do anything with the lights in the room or turn down anything, we exposed for the lights in the back and then brought the levels up at his face. So the only thing that we saw that this was falling off too much, so what we did is we leaned a bounce card right here, and then basically all that light was bouncing off even from the room and everything going on and filling up his shadow side there. This is the face-on shot we were talking about. His hood is going to be cutting off a bunch of that light, but again, we still have a nice gradient between the two sides of his face. And then if you even look, you can see that catch light in his eyes, and it looks like you can actually see the pivot tube there and the railing if you really look for it. But again, super nice frame in terms of lighting and everything that we're looking at in terms of contrast ratios. He pops out from the background. Again, that's due to separation and just due to lighting him and exposing him and bringing him up brighter than the actual background. This is just another shot of him. This is the B-cam angle, and then this was on a tighter focal length. And it gives you more depth and more compression. That's why these lights look so blown out in terms of bokeh and everything like that. A lot of people say that it gives you more separation, and again, that's the more compression with a telephoto lens. And then again, you have that nice split between the two sides of his face, and then a nice fall off here. And then you can see that slight edge light, hair light coming from, and that's just coming from the room. And again, we're just really fortunate in this case that these light sources worked out in our favor. And this is the person going to be interviewing Wayne Simmonds. And this was again shot on the 105, so you have a bunch of compression, and we're shooting in again to the other corner of the room. And this is why everything looks just so separated. And again, we have our tube down here. That is a terrible drawing of a tube. We have our tube here, that's still pretty bad. Anyway, the light's coming up here, and then this is again stopped down. And then again, this is stopped down, and you can see the catch light even a little bit better in his eyes. And then this is just giving, again, a nice key light towards him, and then his gradient across his face is pretty nice in terms of the highlight fall off here. So the only thing that here, we didn't even have to add a bounce, or we didn't even have to add a neg. Naturally, this room on his side, I don't know for exactly the reason why we didn't need to add a bounce. Could use a little bit, but we didn't have another one. And again, this is just using one light, and then he has some separation on his jacket here, and not much on his ear or anything like that. And that's just a hair light from the natural room itself. This is a short video, but we learned so much from this experience that we had to share it with you guys. There's just so many situations we run into in terms of interviews and just working on the field where we can't use a lot of our equipment because we don't have the space or any other limiting factors such as those things as well. We really hope that this type of content helps you guys. And if you want to see more, let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and subscribe for more.